During the past few months, I've received some emails and comments requesting updates on my pet rats. So given the circumstances which I'll talk about today, the time for this update has come. Sadly, it will be the last rat-related video on this channel. Warning to those of you who are usually here for my whippet-related content, this video will not be about whippets, but if you want an update on my rats, feel free to stay. I'll actually appreciate it. If you're new here, apart from our large whippet pack, we used to own a total of 9 pet rats. 2 males and 7 females, separated by gender of course. My intention was never to breed them, but to have the best of both worlds. I love rats and always will from the bottom of my heart, but as I explained in the previous video on this topic, which will be linked somewhere above here, I am allergic to them. They give me severe asthma attacks. And I've had bad luck with most of them suffering some sort of tumors, resulting in a very bad and sad end. This video will be something like a part 2, so if you want all of this to make sense, feel free to watch the previous one if you'd like. Disclaimer, because I know how people love to make bad assumptions on social media. You will see some tiny cages throughout the video. These are either very temporary or hospital cages. If you see cages with no bedding or few hammocks, the videos have been taken during cleaning time. And for the hygiene freaks, you will see rats on or in a sink. This is not our kitchen sink, but the one in the rat room, which was thoroughly cleaned and disinfected every single day after free roaming. So one of our older girls, Chanel, who as I mentioned last time had large memory tumors, passed away at 2 years and 9 months of age, and we were left with the 2 neutered boys, Salem and Blade, and the 3 younger girls, Merlin, Blair and Jinx. In December 2022, I took the decision to have all the girls spayed. Spaying at this older age is not as effective as spaying earlier when it comes to tumor prevention, but still it was better than nothing because I had enough with pituitary tumors, ovarian cysts and memory tumors. Plus, I wanted the boys to move in together with the girls. It broke my heart thinking one boy would pass before the other and they had to spend the rest of their days alone. And the most practical thing to do was to make them all one family. A week or so before Christmas, all 3 girls were spayed by our amazing exotic vet. And of course, it did not go without hiccups. They gave the vets many scares that day. First of all, Blair had very hard time going under anesthesia, and it's taken them forever to operate on her. Second, Jinx had very hard time waking up from anesthesia. Eventually they all pulled through and we brought them home in 3 separate hospital cages, where we could monitor their feeding and waste, make sure they don't bother each other's stitches, and give them painkillers and antibiotics as prescribed. The next day, the vet wanted to see them and make sure they're all recovering well considering the circumstances. Lucky, because if we didn't have an appointment in advance, I would have made one urgently. Jinx had unlocked a terrible respiratory infection, possibly as a result from the anesthesia, and one of the boys, Blade, had one too, as a result from no one knows. And so we brought 4 out of 5 rats to the vet. The girls were recovering well from the surgeries, and the 2 rascals with respiratory infections had x-rays, which showed no abnormalities, and were sent home with medications. And as I've mentioned before, it never hurt me to pay for my rats' treatment, medication or vet visits. But for the price of spaying 3 rats and medicating 2 with respiratory infections at once, one could purchase a well-bred whippet puppy from an ethical breeder, okay? For Jinx and Blade, we had to get a special inhaler and make special boxes where they had to stay in to be medicated, 3 times a day, 4 minutes per medication. And that's how I will always remember that Christmas, stressing about my rats, giving medication, precisely dosing meds for the inhalers, remembering which one goes before the other. The holidays weren't very easy, but everyone recovered eventually. A few weeks later, when I was certain the girls' incisions were fully healed and their stitches have absorbed completely, it was time for them to become one happy family with the boys. The process of introducing rats involves tiny cages. First, they're placed together in a neutral territory. When all goes well, they're moved to a small carrier, then a larger cage, then a larger cage, then a larger cage, then half of their main cage, and then the whole main cage. Then slowly adding hammocks, food bowls, etc., and monitoring for any fighting. In case of a conflict, they're moved back to the previous stage and move on from there. This is just a simplified explanation on rat introductions. However, this was such an easy process that they instantly behaved like they've never lived separately, maybe because they were in the same room and have safely interacted numerous times with each other for the past 1+ year. Still, we followed the whole process just to be sure everything will be alright. For 4 months we had no health issues with none of them, which was an absolute record breaker for the rats in this house, to be honest. That was until Blair showed severe pituitary tumor symptoms overnight. She couldn't keep her balance, eating was a difficult task, and I just knew what had to be done. I rang the vet, they took us in, and we concluded Blair was too far gone, and considering her age, it made no sense to try with medications. We would have granted her a week or 2 max if they worked at all, and even if they did, the outcome would have been the same. Then around summertime, Salem, the black boy, began to slow down. He lost weight, became very sluggish, his hind legs didn't function as they once used to. It was a steady process, it didn't happen overnight, and I thought it was a sign of aging. And by the end of August, out of the blue, Blade showed severe symptoms of pituitary tumor, similar to Blair, and this broke me. People who own a lot of rats usually deal with this a couple of times. We've had 9 and 5 of them went through this. Even though it wasn't our fault, I just felt horrible. Meanwhile, Salem's back end stopped functioning altogether. The day of our appointment with Blade, he was very lethargic and in respiratory distress, so I brought them in together. The vet examined them and together we decided it's time to let them go. These two were 2.5 years old at the time, which is an honorable age for rats. They weren't brothers, by the way, but were inseparable since day one. While they loved the girls, they always slept together, ate together, and followed each other everywhere. From the beginning, I was heartbroken just by the thought one would go before the other. And at the end, for better or for worse, they crossed the rainbow bridge together, which made saying goodbye just a little easier. We were left with 2 girls, Jinx and Merlin. This was sad in a way, being used to having more rats at once, and later at some point Jinx passed away. And Merlin was alone, and this made us very sad. As bad as it might sound, I was hoping it won't be for long, only because rats are not supposed to live alone. Getting more was not an option, and neither was to foster other rats to keep her company and return them to their breeder or initial owner once she passed. And getting more to keep her company and rehoming them later on is something I would have never done. If you've been here long enough, you know I feel responsible for my pets for life. I will most likely be judged by other experienced rat owners for not swallowing my pride and rehoming her to someone else with rats, which usually is the right thing to do when you're left with one relatively healthy elderly rat and no plans of owning more. But here we're still very behind on proper care of small pets. Tiny cages are still the norm for all rodents and rabbits, and spending money on them at the vet is considered a waste. Once they begin to decline, most prefer to let them fade away. This is a conversation I've had with our vet numerous times. I'm not saying we're the only ones in this whole wide country willing to invest so much time, energy and money into rats, but the odds of me finding a similar home willing to take her at this age, do proper introduction with their existing rats, and ensuring she receives adequate medical attention when she gets ill was close to none. And as the weeks went by, Merlin looked as healthy as she was 1 year ago. No signs of aging, no slowing down or symptoms of illnesses. It's like she was destined to never age. I wish all of them lived such a long, healthy life. To be fair, most of them lived way beyond 2 years of age. Long lives, but not healthy by the end of their journeys. Merlin passed 3 weeks ago at 3 years and 2 months old. This is record-breaking for the rats under our care. Not only this, but out of all of our rats who were either put to sleep or we found them gone, with indication it was most likely not a peaceful passing, she was curled up in her usual nest, sleeping like she used to sleep every single day. Rats simply passing of old age on their own in their sleep without any visible signs of suffering is rare. And now that we don't have any more rats, it's bittersweet. On one hand, I'm cursed with being allergic, and I'm tired of the heartbreak surrounding their health problems and the constant vet visits. My sister, who I share them with, also turned allergic to them, with symptoms similar to hay fever, and got hives the second she touched them. On the other hand, we love them and they will always be near and dear to our hearts. It was such a dream of mine to have them. They're such amazing pets. So smart, loving and fun, and I will never forget the joy they gifted us. They are like tiny dogs, to be honest, and I found so many similarities between them and whippets, such as their need for companionship, how much they like to cuddle, how they like to sleep covered under something, preferably soft and fleecy. They live to find ways to have fun, and many other small things. If only I was not allergic to them, I'd be crazy enough to keep on owning them. Maybe in another life I'll have this honor once more. In case any new or potential rat owners are watching this, don't be discouraged by this video or the previous. They're fabulous little buddies as long as you're financially prepared to spend a lot of money on vet visits and treatment when required, and you have the courage to accept the heartbreak of their short lifespan and illnesses. As for me, I will stray away from my desires to own anything other than whippets. All my life I've been obsessed with animals and I have a list of pets I would love to own. But as I age, I come to realize I'd rather have another whippet instead. And that was it for today's video. Next week we'll be back with our usual whippet content. Have a lovely weekend and a fantastic week afterwards, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye bye!